We are live now.
Thank you, ma'am. So I'm going to call the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority GPC meeting to order for April 9th, April 8th, I'm sorry, for April 8th. And I believe we have a quorum and that we have Mayor Michelle Davis Younger with us and Chair Ann Wheeler with us. And so the first thing we're going to do is call for a resolution to call for a motion for approval for the resolution to conduct this Government and Personnel Committee meeting electronically. Is there a motion?
So moved. Ann Wheeler.
Motion made by Chair Randall and seconded by Ms. Younger. Is there a second on the, is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? That motion will pass 302 with Mayor Rischel and Chair McKay being absent for this meeting. The next thing we'll do is go to the meeting minutes from the March 11th meeting. I trust everyone had a chance to read those minutes. Did anyone want to make adjustment to those minutes or change anything? Seeing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Motion made by Chair Wheeler and seconded by Mayor Younger. Discussion on that motion. Seeing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
None that are opposed. That motion will pass again with the same margin, 302. And now we will go to the presentation from Ms. Baynard. How you doing, Ms. Baynard?
I'm fine, Madam Chair. Just to set up where we are, and for Delegate Rome, who wasn't at the last meeting. As you recall, I discussed with you, we went over a number of studies and funding and activity that the General Assembly and the administration had agreed to related to transportation. Some of them are going to be specifically beneficial for Northern Virginia. But one thing we said we wanted to do was be part of, active in, guide, know about several studies that are moving forward that impact transportation. And again, I'll just say a big theme of this year's General Assembly session was transportation and climate, transportation and emissions, electrification of the transportation infrastructure. So, Madam Chair, you had talked about, we wanted to make sure that we were going to be part of those activities, both sharing information from what's going on here in the region, and also understanding what they do that might impact how we do our work moving forward. So going back to slide 2, I'll just do an overview of the work plan that I thought we would do for this year is, again, just, be careful in understanding what's going on in our world and pushing back on anything that would try to reduce our funding or our powers. Again, the studies on transportation, and again, the role that the authority in our region and the authority would be playing in helping the state meet its carbon emission goals. Now, Deb, the next slide, sorry. Did want to bring the authority up on some discussions going on at the Commonwealth Transportation Board. Towards the end of last year, after going through a lot of regional authority, transportation authority, RTAs activity, the Commonwealth Transportation Board asked the staff if they could get an overview of how all these organizations activate and work. And so this is going to be done in 2 parts. So in March, the Office of the Attorney General, and it was the attorneys who work in sort of the transportation sector of that office, provided a pretty cut and dried overview of the 3 entities we now have: Northern Virginia, Hampton Roads, and Central Virginia. And it was very much about what the code says they are, what they were created, what the revenue sources are. And this month, in about 2 weeks, they're going to come back and talk really about what I think the CTB members want to know about is how we're using our money, how we select projects, and how do we prioritize. And next slide, please, Dev. I thought it would be useful to share with you so you can understand some of the things the CTB members are asking about. The standard project agreements, which we've been using forever, your local governments have been using forever. There was some concern expressed about, are they all different? Are they creating inefficiencies for VDOT? And at the end of the day, the commissioner was said, no, we've been part of putting them together. They're all using standard. They're all very similar. It was brought up about, as you know, Virginia is responsible for the transportation infrastructure, and that includes maintenance. And so a question was asked about all this new lane mileage that the RTAs are creating, that does create an additional maintenance responsibility for the Commonwealth. Is that of concern? There was a concern expressed about, with all this additional transportation activity, most of these projects are going to be managed by VDOTs at the request of the localities or the regional authority. Is VDOT being asked to do too much? Are they being fairly compensated? Are they being compensated in the same way, under the same criteria across this? There weren't really answers to a lot of these questions at the meeting. There was asked about how much debt has been issued by the RTAs. Is that debt of the Commonwealth? Is that debt of the localities? Or is it just debt of the RTAs? Some of the members of the authority, and I guess Chair Randall would know, maybe would be, when the authority first got its real money, there was a bond validation suit activity. Bonds, a small amount, relatively small amount of bonds were issued to support that and be the reason we did it. So, I mean, I can tell you this, the Central Virginia Authority is just getting started. They haven't issued any debt. We have, Monica, 100 and something in debt.
Mike, I think we have 60 something left.
Is left over, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
remaining.
Closer to 60 with premium. We issued 69 million and got 78 million.
The Hampton Roads,
so
the Hampton Roads Authority is already issued $1 billion worth of debt and will be issuing some more. And now, again, they're undertaking a very significant project, which is a second Hampton Roads bridge tunnel span. And that's Delegate Rome has heard about this. That's a multi-billion-dollar project. And that region is essentially using their authority to be able to fund that project. I mean, so it was going to be debt. They're doing express lanes. The tolls will provide debt service. And the question that gets asked by every jurisdiction that doesn't have an authority, are the authorities using their funding to buy down regional projects so that they score better in smart scale? And, that is an accusation that gets thrown at Hampton Roads in Northern Virginia quite a bit as a concern that we are somehow gaming the smart scale system. So anyway, wanted to make you all aware that these discussions are going on. At this point, I don't know where they will go. It is clear that some members of the CTB are more comfortable with the authorities than others. Now, whether that results in any proposed changes, it's unclear to me at this point.
So Tracy, help me understand what legislation gives the CTB any authority to question the authority of the MBTA or any other authority?
Well, all of the statutes creating each of these authorities requires, to one degree or another, cooperation with the Commonwealth, specifically with the Commonwealth Transportation Board as the transportation oversight policy entity in the Commonwealth. Our statute, the one in Hampton Roads, does not give the Commonwealth Transportation Board any oversight role directly, nor the ability to say we can or cannot do anything. So as the code is written right now.
That's what I thought. And so I'm a little concerned with this whole conversation, to be quite blunt. I do think that all transportation entities in the Commonwealth should cooperate, should communicate, should work together to the best of our ability. I take a bit of offense though to the CTP, Commonwealth Transportation Board, questioning us to this degree when, I mean, if there was something to question, that'd be one thing. But when we are sitting on the highest bond rating possible, when we can clearly show a body of work over the moment we got funded to now that is producing, then I'm a little concerned. And truth and fact is, if anything, we get dinged on getting smart scale money because we have the authority. And so not only we're not gaming the system, truthfully, we should probably be given more smart scale money than we receive. And because we have an authority, we don't get the smart scale money we're supposed to have. And so I'm a little bit hesitant to be answering anybody's question. We don't owe anyone any answers on how well we're doing with the money, with the Northern Virginia taxpayer money we're getting to create Northern Virginia projects for congestion relief relative to cost.
Madam Chair.
Ms. Rome?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just had a couple of reactions I'd just like to share.
Yeah.
Okay, so first off, well, first, thank you for the presentation, by the way. So I can tell you that with Hampton Roads, one of the big things about creating that authority for them is that the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel is such a behemoth of a project that yes, they are getting CTB money, or they did get smart scale money in the last round. It was the most expensive project in the state at the time, and actually, besides from the 2866 interchange, probably even though I would say the 2866 interchange is the most important in the state, it's the Hampton Roads Bridge Tunnel has a, if you don't get it done, it's dangerous. But what I would say though, in regard to CTB especially, I am getting a sense from this round of smart scale, when you look at the fact that what they have proposed in terms of staff, and we have to keep in mind that the commissioners are not bound to staff recommendations, but they are certainly likely to oblige them, is that between your county of Loudoun, between Ann and mine of Prince William, and between Fairfax County, we have one recommended project in Woodbridge among all three of those. And in doing so, what we are seeing in the Northern Virginia part is a significant bias toward the inner jurisdictions of Northern Virginia. And on top of that, while I understand that they want to focus on multimodal, our multimodal projects that we're presenting from the western part of Northern Virginia are not scoring as highly as those inner ones, even though they are scoring trails better than our road projects when our road projects have multimodal functions with them. My concern is what is essentially happening is that they are shifting the responsibility of all road funding in Northern Virginia almost entirely to the MVTA now.
Absolutely.
In terms of the outer burbs. And they're more or less telling us, well, we have a limited amount of money because of the COVID hit, we're going to have even less. So if you guys want to take care of this, you're either going to have to get that federal infrastructure package that's coming about, or the MVTA is going to have to bail you out next year. That's wildly frustrating. And it might be something that we're going to have to address legislatively in the General Assembly next year, because after round 3, when we were under the impression that, okay, Alexandria, Arlington, counties, they did well that round, that'll take care of us in the western part of Northern Virginia next round. Not so. That is not what we're seeing right now, even though we have very good projects.
Right.
And I think I just want to put that on public record right now, because I'm very not happy with the direction that this is going in. And if we do need to come up with, if this is the way it's going to go, then we're going to need some state revenue in terms of the MVTA. It's only fair at that point.
Yeah, I agree. And I do understand the behemoth of the project that the bridge is. And I fully support any other jurisdictions that want to have an authority. And I know that both my last term and this term, I received phone calls from the administration that told me why the projects that scored higher in smart scale in Northern Virginia, in Loudoun, and should have received money, wouldn't receive money. And so I know for a fact that, what smart scale was meant to be and how it's working now is not quite the same. And I realize what's happening in Hampton Roads, but I also know that they're not, Smart Scale is not funding things in Northern Virginia, not in Prince William County, not in Fairfax County, not in Loudoun County. They're not. And so, this questioning us, I'm having a little heartache with that.
Well, again, I just wanted to make sure that you were aware of this.
Tracy, you're so fantastic.
Look,
Tracy's like,
it happens. It's happening. I just think that we will be part of the development of the next presentation, the Attorneys General's staff, in reaction to Ms. Bachman reaching out to them to offer to make sure they knew the nuances of how things work in Northern Virginia, because the worst thing that can happen is for a presentation to be not truly reflective of our opportunities and challenges. So
if they want to know the nuances of how things work in Northern Virginia so they can do it better at the state level, I'm cool with that.
yeah. So
if I could, Tracy, Chair Randall, next month, or I guess now it's this month, the presentation to the CTB regarding the transportation authorities will really be around the financial aspects of the transportation authorities. So as Tracy noted, we will keep you abreast of what's going on. One thing I wanted to flag, and this could be an issue. I just don't know at this time, and we're trying to just see how everything plays out. But of course, we want to be proactive. The transportation authorities are creating additional lane miles. And at least on the authority here at MBTA, we cannot fund operations and maintenance. I think that's not the case for Central Virginia, and I'm unsure about Hampton Roads, Tracy.
they cannot either. It's to be
Okay.
congestion relief and expansion of capacity.
Yeah.
Okay. So we will keep you abreast of those discussions.
Okay. Sounds good.
So
Before
next
you
slide,
go on,
please.
does anyone else have any comments
sorry.
about? Does anyone else? So Ann and or I'm sorry, Chair Wheeler, Mayor Younger, you guys have any comments?
No, I share your same concerns, but I mean, we can answer all these questions very well, actually. So I'm at least comfortable with the questions.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
So next slide, Dev. So I wanted to highlight for you, again, with due dates, and there's an attachment for you all that has a complete schedule. But these are the various studies that I believe are going to be most connected with, adjacent to, need to be coordinated with the work the authority is doing, both on the short term, midterm, but particularly as you all are updating the long range plan transaction. So that, again, as you said, Chair Randall, that state, regional, local entities working on transportation are coordinating and sharing information and trying to support each other. So there's again a lot of work that's going to be ongoing, particularly in the next year and a half, that has a direct nexus to what the authority is doing. Delegate Rome will know this very well, and probably Mayor Davis Young. There's the Springfield with Quantico Enhanced Public Transportation Feasibility Study. This is, again, looking at the quarter as it states, primarily will involve Prince William and Fairfax County. That effort is underway, and it'll come up with recommendations on what to do in that quarter. In some ways, it's sort of, I see it as sort of an extension of the I-95 corridor study, but just more focused. VRE, NVTC, NVTA related activity are all falling into that. We talked about last time the Transit Equity and Modernization Study. Ms. Bachman is going to be part of that as a stakeholder, and I believe has a first meeting coming up soon.
It was actually last Friday.
Okay, sorry. So we're going to get interim study in December and then final one next year. Something that I know all of our localities are interested in is multi-use trail opportunities. And so the state is looking at possibly taking a larger role in that. And that will start with staff at the Office of Intermodal Planning and Investment doing a needs assessment and a proposed prioritization process. And then they will talk about how much money might be needed and if they can start programming that in. Ideally, your localities will be, touched on that, because I'm pretty sure almost all of you have trails as part of your transportation plan and within your comprehensive plans. Dev, next slide. Again, in the issue of, the electrification of the transportation infrastructure, as well as the issue of climate change and greenhouse gas emissions, there are several things coming up. The update of the Virginia Energy Plan, again, interim update is due October 1. I'm fairly sure there will be a reference to electric vehicle charging infrastructure, what that looks like in Virginia. Actually, the Commonwealth Transportation Board at their March meeting got an update on a study that was commissioned by the Secretary's office that looked at transportation corridors. I mean, it's not enough, but it was starting to give them some data about where the gaps are and what the challenges are. There's a Coastal Virginia Transportation Infrastructure Inundation Study. Again, all of us who have repeat places in our transportation network that repeatedly flood with the heavy rains. This is to get at identifying those and making recommendations. There'll be a baseline inventory greenhouse gas emission and sources. That report's due October 2022. Next slide, Dev. Oh, is it the last one? Oh, and then there's an attachment which just is all of them over 2 pages that are coming up in 21 and 22. So again, there's a lot to be doing. Again, on many of these, I expect that your localities are going to be contacted for information, for thoughts. Again, from the authority's perspective, we want to be able to support you in those efforts, as well as, again, bring this information into what you're all doing, as well as share with these entities what the authority is doing. So I just wanted to make sure we all could see that and kind of knew key dates that are coming up.
So the only question I have, and this is a question to you, Monica. I remember when I came to the authority, and I remember looking at how we score projects, the scoring criteria, and the environmental score, I think if I remember right, it's like 5% of the score. Is that right? Is it 5%? I remember asking before and thinking, is that high enough? Should we be putting a higher value on the carbon load, and is that a higher enough score? So my question is, was the scoring criteria and the decision to put the environmental score at 5% a decision of past authorities that can be voted on and changed by another authority, or how did that scoring criteria came to be that the environmental score was only 5%?
Right. Thank you for that, Chair Randall. So we did have, I believe, 12, 15 performance measures. I know it was too many now looking at hindsight. So we did put a ranking or percentage on each of the performance measures. The performance measures that were geared specifically towards congestion reduction, they received the highest ranking because we utilize we rate congestion reduction at 45%. So that includes reduction in vehicle miles traveled and performance measures along those lines. Having said that, it was approved by the authority. But as we initiate and have begun the initial update of transaction, and which will flow into the next update, not the one that you're going to do this June or July, the call for projects, but afterwards, the next update of the 6-year program, we will have an opportunity to revisit the performance measures. So what that means for transaction, at some point during the process, we will come to the authority, and work again with our committees as well, the PPC, the PCAC, the TAC, on the performance measures. What we envision now is that reducing the number of performance measures, number one, because when you have too many, they begin to cancel each other out in some aspects. And then we will revisit the weighting that we assign to each of the criteria or the performance measures as well. As you know, in your vision statement, and we've been talking to the committees, we are looking at equity. So we want to account for that in the performance measures that address that specifically. So that's a long way of saying we will revisit as part of the transaction update.
Yeah, that would be good. So I think you're, first of all, I think you're correct. When we talk about congestion relief, if people are not sitting in traffic idling, they're going to have a smaller footprint. But it's also congestion relief relative to cost, right? So it's not just congestion relief alone. So
Absolutely.
so I do appreciate the fact that we'll look at these again and maybe decrease the performance measures. And if we gave a higher, even bump that environmental score up at all, that would be, we can talk about that. So, Delegate Rome, do you have anything?
The only question I have right now, Madam Chair, is what will be the size when we do the call for projects this summer? What's the projected budget that we're going to have to actually work with?
Well, that's something we will have to assess, as I think May 1st is when some of the, I don't want to call it restrictions, but when the omnibus transportation bill had to be revisited due to COVID, there were some delays in enactment and some of the monies that were to come to the authority. So May 1st, I believe, Tracy, please correct me if I'm wrong.
That's correct.
To start to receive those funds. So Mike and the finance team will have to assess where we are, where we think we will be, because again, we are adding out years. For this call for projects, we'll be adding fiscal years 26 and 27. So this is out year monies, and we want to make sure that our projections and estimates really are on par where we are trending. So that's a long way of saying, Delegate Rome, that we will be working on that answer for you.
And just to follow up with what Ms. Bachman said, on May 1st, we get another 5 cents of grantor's tax. So our grantor's tax will be 10 cents.
Okay,
Well,
yeah, that's, yeah. Yeah. Miss Chair Wheeler?
Two sort of quick questions, and one's kind of obscure. You may not know and may know the answer to this, but with regard to the electrification and the charging stations, do they ever take into account the fact that someplace like Prince William County doesn't have a lot of mass transit options, and so it's more beneficial because we have more vehicles moving to put electrification stations in Prince William County?
That is a great question, because there hasn't, let me put it this way. Why they're having this discussion is to try to figure out where should we be focusing our charging station attention, and what kind of charging stations should they be? And then, what are the different pots of money we're going to take it from? So for example, the last couple of years, I think, Delegate Rome, there's been money from the Volkswagen settlement and some of that was put towards putting up charging stations. They had a procurement. A company, I think is called Ego, has been putting them up. Virginia is looking at possibly joining what's called the Transportation Climate Initiative. It's sort of the transportation version of RGGI. And with auctions related to that, it would create an additional pot of funding. Some of that will no question, it'll go towards electrification and charging stations. So the discussions we're having in the energy plan that are happening in the Secretariat's office are all going to start drilling down to just the question you ask: where should these go, and what are the criteria we're going to look at? And your statement, if you're in an area that is maybe transit low or not as much transit because of how you're developed and spread out, that the effort would be to focus on transitioning the vehicle fleet to electricity, but you have to have charging stations to make that happen.
Okay. So thank you. I guess we'll at least hopefully someone's thinking about that. That's sort of my first question. The second one is kind of an obscure question also, the greenhouse gas inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And this comes up all the time, and when we're just doing our climate action plan, and we need a greenhouse gas inventory and a baseline, but it says
Right.
2022. But do you know any more information about who's doing that, or how can I find out the
Sure,
timing?
it is, it's the Department of, I know I thought I had it written down, what did I do? Okay. It is the Air Pollution Control Board.
Okay,
So, and they'll be supported by staff from Department of Environmental Quality.
okay, great, thank you.
And so, that was a piece of legislation. So yeah, so the timing may not work out for you, I don't know, because it's not getting the report until 2022, but it will be a baseline. And I don't know whether Council of Governments has ever done a regional baseline.
Not since I've been there.
Okay.
Yep. Ms. Younger,
Thank you.
Mayor Younger?
I'm good, trying to take it all in, taking my notes. And,
I just really like saying Mayor Younger, you know that? I just like the
yeah, I
sound.
kind of gathered that.
Just like saying it.
But I do, well, real quick, Ms. Baer,
Sure.
you said the Transportation Climate Initiative, they're looking at creating funding, but we don't have an idea about this, the electrical charging station, because we, of course, are interested in that. But you said you don't have an idea when anything would be coming.
No, I think we're gonna see a plan, and it's gonna be a combination of course, the Transportation Secretariat and the Natural Resources Secretariat are gonna be basically jointly looking at this, and Virginia is part of a East Coast initiative collective that wants to create essentially fully robust electrification corridors up and down the East Coast. I will, if it's of interest, I could send to you all the study that was done for the transportation sector that CTB got, and you can share that for yourself and with your staff. And it gives you some more information about, it has maps in it about, where the weak parts are in Virginia, and it's a really good study. I mean, I'm a geek about this, but it was a really helpful to get me to figure out just a context of this discussion about electrification and the network.
If you could, I would appreciate that. Yeah.
Sure. No, that's
Thank
a great idea.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's it, Chair Randall. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, I think that's all on that issue. So we have one more item, the timeline attachment.
And right, and that's just an information document. It's helps us get organized so we know when these studies are coming out, and we can be prepared for them, or know that data point will be coming to us. So I will say on the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th item under FY 2022, the DRP, the Transit Ridership Incentive Program, DRPT is putting together the application process. So if your locality is interested in applying for some of that funding, and again, there's going to be a lot of focus on, again, long distance commuter routes, but also the issue of low or free fares for transit. If you want to do a pilot program in that or want to explore that, just know that may be coming out next 30 days or so. But DRPT is actively working on that process. Deputy Director Jennifer DeBrule is working on it.
Okay.
So anyway, just for your information, you can share it with your staff so you know when certain things are coming up.
All right, this is helpful to have. Ms. Rome, before you jump off anything? No, Ms. Wheeler? Ms. Younger? All right, Ms. Beckman and Ms. Boehner, is that everything?
That's the state of play. Important news for rail folks. They just hired an executive director, the first executive director for the Virginia
Heard about that. We all heard
Rail
about that. That was,
Authority. I've just forgot its full name, VPRA.
JD Statler, I believe, Tracy.
DJ Statler. He recently just retired from Amtrak. So it sounds like they've got a very qualified person who's been dealing with a lot of these issues already.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, we've heard about him.
So that's good news.
That is good news. Again, Deb, can you go back to the agenda? I think that's all on the agenda.
It is.
All right. So I do believe we'll see everybody in an hour and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
evening.
Thank you.